afternoon, Dr. Fox. Thank you very much for attending the interview. So our first question is who or what, in your opinion, is an engineering manager?
So as I think about engineering manager, I actually differentiate that a little bit from how I view engineering management. So to me, engineering management is more about creating business savvy engineers. So engineers that have the ability to work in business in a variety of different roles. And when I think about an engineering manager, I often think about someone who is managing people in an engineering role, where if engineering management graduates actually go on to do a number of different roles, and sometimes they are managing people within an organization, but other times they're managing other things such as processes or projects. And so I do think there's a little bit of a difference, and that everyone that's interested in engineering management needs to figure out what role is right for them in an organization. You may ultimately become an engineering manager, but that might not be what's best suited for you, and some other role might be better for you.
So our next question is, could you please share your experience about how you decided to choose your field of interest, which is technology development?
Yes. So I wish I could say that I had started off with a great plan and knew exactly what I wanted to do throughout my career. My background is a PhD in material science, and so I wanted to do technology development. So after getting my PhD, I went to work for IBM doing memory chip development, trying to figure out how to make new products within IBM. And so that just gradually emerged. So I always had an interest in developing technologies. I found that I was actually very good at thinking about other things associated with technologies, not just the technology itself, but thinking about budgets and projects and time schedules. And so my roles gradually transitioned from not only thinking about developing the technology, but kind of working on the whole process around developing technology, and then got into project management as more and more projects emerged. So it was kind of a transitional role. I hadn't intended to go into that area, but it's kind of the way my career led me.
Could you please share your personal experience about how you arrived at the decision to be a professor and work at Duke?
Sure. So it's interesting. When I was in graduate school, I can remember talking with my friends, and I think all of us at one point had an interest in teaching and going back to a university. As I mentioned, I worked for IBM out of graduate school. Our other observation was that we felt that the professors that were the very best at teaching often had some industrial experience. So most of us didn't want to go right in to academia, but wanted to work for a while and then consider the options. So that's kind of the way my career started out. I worked for IBM, worked for Kobe Steel, worked for General Electric, and in those roles I gradually moved away from the traditional academic route. I was not publishing a substantial amount, and so the opportunity to go back to a university seemed somewhat limited. Because I wasn't actively engaged in research. But I had an opportunity to come to Duke to teach in engineering management, which is something I was passionate about. I worked with a number of early career individuals, so fresh graduates, and it was very interesting in talking to them. Almost every early conversation revolved around some discussion about there are 1,000 technical problems out here for you to solve. Your challenge is to figure out the right ones to solve, right? And so that wasn't about technology. It was about, figuring out which ones would have the greatest impact. And in most cases, it had to do with the financial impact, but that's certainly not the only measure that you would use to figure out which projects to work on. And so, as I worked and mentored with early career graduates, it kind of inspired me to come back to a university and come to Duke after my corporate career.
What are your top 3 expectations for MEM students at the end of the first semester?
So, what we're really trying to do is to get students to think a little bit differently, right? I mean, engineering school is great for preparing you to think very analytically about very tangible problems. In a lot of cases in engineering management, the problems are very complex, but often not as well defined. And so hopefully students are developing kind of three things, although there's certainly lots of things to develop. One is getting used to ambiguity. I think as an engineer, you're used to very concrete things, but through your case studies and other analyses, I think you've realized that not everything is as cut and dry as it was in your undergraduate engineering discipline. So I really want you to get comfortable with ambiguity. The second thing we want you to get comfortable with is dealing with making decisions in a certain context. So I think in engineering, you're often used to, you do one thing and you do it that way every single time over and over again. That's a repeatable process that works very well. But in business and a lot of things that you have to deal with, it all depends on the context or all the other factors that surround what it is you're trying to make a decision on. I know that we talked about my background in technology development, so I worked in IBM and Kobe Steel, and in those two environments, being the first one to develop something was very important. So I had this strong mentality of, if I'm in technology development, being first was very important. And so I was shocked to some extent when I went to General Electric in their lighting division, and their strategy was to be a fast follower. And I couldn't understand how a technology organization could not want to be first. And it took a while for me to realize that in their business context, in the way that that particular segment of the market worked, being first was not always as crucial as it was when I was working for IBM doing microelectronics or with Kobe Steel. And so we hope that as students work through the first semester, they're realizing that as they make decisions, there's not just a single decision that can be made. It often depends on all these surrounding factors. And so students are hopefully getting an appreciation for assessing the context that they're going to make regarding the decisions and recommendations. And I guess the third thing that we really hope that students develop is being more effective working in teams. Teams, by their very nature, are inefficient. They're awkward. There are a lot of challenges, right? And so, you have to work very hard to make those teams effective, and it takes practice. And so, hopefully students are getting an opportunity to learn to develop the skills to work more effectively in teams. So there are lots of things we hope students learn, but those are certainly three of them.
So what advice would you give MEM students to approach career upon graduation of the program?
I think there are a lot of things that we can, recommend to students, but I think the one thing that I consistently recommend is to remember that you need to keep learning even after you graduate. I think it's, certainly graduating from Duke is a great accomplishment, but you have to, walk into your workplace environment realizing that you probably know the least in that organization that you walk into. And so you need to walk in with an attitude of wanting to learn, knowing that everyone else that's there has something to teach you. And so you need to have the right attitude and need to continue to learn throughout your career.
And our last question is, what is your favorite restaurant at Duke campus?
Okay. So the interesting thing is that most days I eat at my desk, I have a peanut butter sandwich. So peanut butter, no jelly, which is somewhat what I'm known for as my lunchtime routine. But when I do go out on campus, the Washington Duke Inn is my favorite. I recommend the crab cakes and the molten chocolate cake if you have the time. It'll usually take you about 2 hours if you're at the Washington Duke Inn, so you do have to schedule quite a bit of time, but that's my favorite on-campus restaurant.